Hey there friends, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm really happy to have you here with me today where we are going to process a whole bunch of pumpkins. Let me show you. We're going to start here with these beautiful peanut pumpkins. These are a super sweet pumpkin. We're also going to process a couple of Cinderella pumpkins. That's these gorgeous orange ones here. And we're gonna start with these two, but I have, I think, about 6 more outside on the deck that we may get into too. We'll see how far we get with these. Here is the plan with those beautiful pumpkins. We are going to can a bunch of it. We are going to roast up and freeze dry some of it. And we are also going to make a delicious pumpkin soup with it. And I can't wait because this soup is one of my favorites. You know what I realized the other day is I actually say that about just about every single soup that I make. So it turns out I just love soup of all kinds, but this one is a really, really great one. The first thing that I'm going to need to do right now is get Dan to come and help me chop these pumpkins in half and into pieces. Because for the canned pumpkin, we actually need to cut, seed, peel, and then chop into 1-inch cubes. I'll talk a little bit more about why I'm going to can my pumpkin the way that I'm going to can it when we get to that point. But I hurt my wrist a while ago, and while it is pretty much healed up at this point, I just want to take it easy on it so I don't re-injure it. So Dan's gonna come and help us do that part. The other ones we're just gonna chop in half and seed. The ones that we're going to roast up for the freeze dryer, we're just gonna chop up, seed, and throw the big chunks right into the oven. The nice thing about doing that is you don't have to peel it because the flesh just scoops right off once it's roasted. Plus it tastes really good when it's roasted as well. Oh, husband, could you give me a hand to chop these pumpkins in half, please? Yeah, if you do it in half, and then maybe I'll get you to do it into quarters, but I just don't want to re-injure my wrist because it's finally feeling better. Just like, whoa, careful. I was gonna say just like a knife through, or a hot knife through butter, but look at that. Oh my gosh, friends, look at how beautiful that is. Gorgeous. Yeah, maybe quartered. I think it'll be easier for me to manage it if it's, yeah, it doesn't, this is all gonna get,
there you go, love.
Thank you, honey. All right, we have this entire counter completely full of pumpkin. The nice thing about pumpkins like these and winter squash in general is it does store fairly well, even just on a kitchen counter, for up to a couple months. Down in my cold room, they'll store up to 6 months without a lot of issues. And spaghetti squash, even longer. I've had spaghetti squash store down in my cold room for almost a year, actually. And once I get to the point where I'm storing my squash down in my cold room, I'll run you through how I go about doing it. But today, let's focus on just getting all of this stuff processed in some different ways. So when it comes to these peanut pumpkins, and they do have another name, which I can never pronounce. It's a French name. I'll put that on the screen for you so that, because you might be able to find them under that name. But this is a very dense pumpkin. You can see how dense it is and how much flesh there is in the pumpkin. Whereas this pumpkin, the Cinderella pumpkin, you can see has a larger seed cavity, and the flesh itself is quite a bit softer. So there's a little bit more water in this one. This is what makes this one a really good soup pumpkin, whereas this one is better for canning and for pies, in my opinion. So what we're gonna do right now is get all of these seeded. So I'm gonna scoop all of the seeds out of them. And I mentioned this in my last video, but we're not big fans of roasted pumpkin seeds. So these all go out to my livestock. And when I mentioned in, I think, my last video about how I couldn't confirm this, but I had heard that the pumpkin seeds are really good for deworming livestock. I had a lot of comments from people confirming that that was also their experience. So we feed these to our chickens, and then we also throw them out into our compost pile, which my cows have access to, and they go in and gobble those up as well. So that's the plan for those. So we're gonna get that done here. This is my favorite little tool. One of you guys sent it to me last year, I think, for taking out the seeds. It's from an Amish store. It's Maddie's seed remover, I guess. And this one's fantastic, but one of the other things that I have used over the years is a canning lid. It works really well too for scraping out the seeds. So I'm gonna get all of these seeds taken out of here and then peel all of these pumpkins. So we're just going to peel the ones that are going to be canned, which is all of these ones. I like to use a densely fleshed sweet pumpkin or squash for canning. So all of the peanut pumpkins I'm going to use for that. And all of these ones, I'm just going to take the seeds out and pop them in the oven at around 400 degrees or so for around 30 minutes just to get them roasted up, and then we'll just scoop the flesh out. And we're going to use a bit of this. I think I might be able to do a couple more pumpkins actually, but we're going to use one whole entire pumpkin for making our soup, and then the rest we are going to puree and put on the freeze dryer trays and freeze dry them. My freeze dryer is actually filled right now with, what's in there? I think I did all of the beans and I took those out yesterday. So those green beans, or the purple beans that turned green that we got from my neighbor. And then what did I put in next? All of the melons, that's what's in there right now. And those should be done fairly soon, and then I'll be able to put in the pumpkin puree. Okay, so we'll get all this scooped out. So this is only gonna take a couple minutes just to scoop these out, but then I have to actually peel the peanut pumpkins because those are the ones that we're gonna can, and they need to be peeled for canning. So I'm gonna get to that. I'll be back with you guys as soon as I am finished, and then we will get everything put into jars. All right, friends, we're gonna get into the nuts and bolts of actually pressure canning all of this squash. So I have a pot on the stove over there. It is recommended to blanch your squash for 2 minutes prior to canning. And all of the research that I've done says that that has to do with killing off whatever bacteria might have collected on the outside of these. Once you've cut them all up, they've sat on your cutting board, etc. So it's supposed to kill off that bacteria. I kind of question that a little bit because it was always my understanding that you had to boil for 10 minutes in order to sterilize something. So I'm not sure why that 2-minute time frame, if anyone knows, I would love to know, is considered safe enough to actually do anything productive to the bacteria that may potentially be on these squash. I just figure that there's no harm in doing it because it will even just clean them, just because they have been handled a lot and they're chopped up and there's lots of surfaces to collect a little bits of dirt or whatever. So it's just going to clean it before I put it in the jar. So I feel like there's no harm, but I do question the science behind why they say to do that. And then the other thing is that it's not recommended to can pureed squash. And the reason for that is because all squashes have different density, and there's no way to know if how dense your product is and the temperatures or times you would need in order to have the heat penetrate right to the center of your product. To me, it makes sense to take the absolute most dense squash that a person could grow, test on that, and then set a time for that product that you would use no matter what squash you were using, so you could guarantee heat penetration. But they haven't done testing on that yet, so we don't have a safe time for that. So that's the reason why they say that canning it in cubes like this with liquid, so that the heat can penetrate all the way through. There's lots of spaces in that product for the heat to actually get in and penetrate. That's why it's considered safe to do it this way. So that is the way that we are going to do it today. I do like to have pureed product on the shelf for squash. So what I do is, like I said, I roast it in the oven and then I puree it and then I freeze dry it. But you could also take that puree and you could dehydrate it, or you could freeze it in your freezer if you do want to have a puree. What I do with this, these chunks of squash, is I drain the liquid out when I open up the jar, and then I just mash it up and I have a puree that way too. The biggest difference is that there is a little bit less concentrated flavor because they've been canned in water, so it does leach out some of that flavor. So it's not quite as concentrated. It also can be a little bit, can be a little bit more water in the actual product itself, but it is still a super convenient way to have squash on your shelves. We are gonna get to chopping the heck out of all of this squash, and we have lots here. So let's get to that. And then as we go, we're just gonna put it in a pot here and then dump it into our water once it's boiling over there. All right, friends, we're gonna put this into very carefully into our boiling water. Whew. I think we can fit some more in there too. Okay, with such a big pot, it's gonna take a few minutes for that to come back up to a boil again. Okay, so now we're just gonna boil these for a couple minutes and then we'll get them put into our jars. All right, these are ready to go. So I'm just gonna use a slotted spoon and get these hot cubes right into my jars, top them with boiling water, an inch of headspace, and then we are gonna pressure can these for 90 minutes at 15 pounds of pressure. You'll have to check your elevation. And this is for quarts, of course. I wish they maintained this glorious yellow color when they're canned. Sadly, they don't. So some kind of sad news. My electric pressure canner is not working. So it will go through all the stages, and then when it goes to pressure can, it just turns off, black screen, no power to it, and then the power turns back on after a little bit. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I certainly don't want to use it to pressure can food until I get that figured out. So we'll have to probably send it in and get them to look at it. So I've had 2 canners run through their paces, and now we have the next batch in, and then I have 2 more batches to run through before we're actually going to be done. But I do have all of the pumpkin, the Cinderella pumpkin that we baked in the oven is all done and ready to go. And all we have to do with this is scoop it out and put it on here. What I did last year, or maybe it was the year before, is take it out and then puree it and put it on here. But I realized afterwards that I didn't really need to do that because I could just blend it up when it comes out of the freeze dryer. It's easier and less messy. So all I'm gonna do with this is just scoop all this nice pumpkin out of here. Oops. And I'm gonna do 4 trays, and then the rest of it I'll use for my soup. So the nice thing is that even though this Cinderella pumpkin is a little bit watery, and I wouldn't want to use it to make pumpkin pie fresh like this, once I freeze dry it and remove all the liquid from it, I can add the amount of liquid back into it that I want to add, so I can have a nice thick paste in order to make pie. Because the nice thing about the Cinderella pumpkin is it is a really nice sweet pumpkin. Definitely recommend the Cinderella pumpkin. It's such a good one, and it's just so easy, or early rather, to mature, which is good in the north. So just spread this out a little bit. My freeze dryer still has a few hours left on it, so I'm gonna cover this up and pre-freeze it in the freezer. And I don't have an element on my stove right now to cook the soup, but I am going to get all the prep done for it. Just get all the veggies chopped up for it. We're going to add a bunch of onions, a bunch of garlic, some potatoes, probably some carrots, and maybe even some roasted red pepper. This soup is one that I make all the time, but it tastes slightly different each time because I just, depending on how much time I have, if I want to roast veggies, I'll roast them because that just makes it taste even better. But sometimes I'll just do a really simple one with just the squash or the pumpkin, some onions, some garlic. Curry is really nice if you want to make a curried soup. A little bit of ginger. But today I think I'm going to add roasted veg to it. Just elevate that flavor a smidge. My chickens love the cooked skins, so those will go out to the chickens. Last one here. We have a lot of pumpkin for our soup. All right, 4 trays now for the freeze dryer. Okay, we're gonna go super heavy on the garlic because this soup tastes really good with lots of garlic in it. Okay, now we got our garlic rather here. We're just gonna get it chopped up, and we're going to fry this in a whole ton of butter, like 2/3 a cup of butter. Lots of butter in this soup. Dan brought me, he was out of town for a couple of days, and he brought me back a cute coat hanger. I'll show you when he gets it all hung up over there. Okay, let's chop up our onions here. Matching ones, because they'd match the stairs too. Yeah, the stairs are that reclaimed wood. All right, my friends, we are back at it in the kitchen again. I just spent the last couple of hours completely tearing my living room apart and just scrubbing everything. This always happens to me in the fall where I just want to give everything a really deep clean before we kind of settle down into winter. So anyway, that's what I've been doing while the canners have been going. They're just cooling down now so that I can add the last 2 batches in. I have taken all of the pumpkin out of the remaining pumpkin shells, and I'm frying up the onions and the garlic, and I'm going to add all of this pumpkin to it. But first, I'm going to add some seasonings in here. So I'm going to add some mild curry powder, quite a bit, because we have quite a bit of pumpkin to go in there. I'm just going to add a pinch, a pinch or so, maybe 2 pinches of cumin. Not too much. Little bit of turmeric and our pumpkin here. Oh, that smells good. I have to go outside and pick the peppers still and get those roasted to add those. Okay, into this, I'm going to add some chicken broth. You can add vegetable broth. You could add like a bouillon, chicken bouillon, or I wouldn't do beef. I would stick with chicken, turkey, or vegetable for this soup. So I have just a little bit of better than bouillon chicken in the bottom of there. So I'm gonna add some water to that and then run down and grab some chicken stock from the pantry. And I'm also going to be adding some coconut milk to this as well once it's all cooked up. Smells so good. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this cook a little bit. We'll run down to the garden. It's been raining for the last like 24 hours or so, so everything is nice and green outside again, thank goodness. Isn't that cute? I still have all of these pumpkins left to deal with. Oh, it's raining again. Oh, so nice having everything turning green out here. It's going to make digging those potatoes a heck of a lot easier than the other day when the ground was completely dry. Woo, it's looking a little ominous over there. Another storm rolling in. We have not had any frost. I'm happy to report since that one frost about a week ago. I just love being outside so much. The bumblebees are still working away. I don't really have that many red peppers in the high tunnel at this point, but I think there's a few. Let's see. This is a lone petunia. I don't even know how this seed got in here, but it's just blooming now. Isn't that pretty? Okay, there's a few little candy cane peppers down there. Little itty bitty ones. Oh, there we go. That one's looking a little sad. What happened with that? Anyone know what caused those weird speckles on there? They look so pretty when they're just starting to change, these candy cane ones. There, that should do us. We have got a ton of tomatoes that need to be picked in here, but I'll hold off and do that tomorrow. My roaster ovens are empty right now though, so I'll be able to fill them up with all these beauties. These ones are called Kaleidoscope Pink, and they look like this when they're ripe. Aren't they beautiful? Crushed heart, always looking gorgeous. Oh good, I do have a box. Now it's really starting to rain out there. Oh dear. All right, now the plan is to run this soup, which has been cooking on the stove for a little bit, through my blender because I like this part really smooth. I have the peppers roasting in the oven, so I'm just gonna chop those up and add those to the soup. And then I also have some potatoes peeled and cooking on the stove because I do like to have a smooth base for this kind of soup, but I also like a little bit of texture in it. So I add a little bit of texture after it's nice and smooth. One of the things about squash or pumpkin soup like this is if you don't run it through the blender, there are sometimes some like kind of stringy bits in it, which is completely eliminated with putting it through the blender. That's the reason why I wasn't worried about chopping my onions really fine, because I knew I was going to be doing this. That smells amazing. So instead of getting a new pot for a soup like this, I just pour the stuff that I've just blended in one side of the pot. Some of it gets blended twice, but that's fine. Look at how beautiful that looks. But that way I don't have to dirty another pot. This is such a warm the belly kind of soup, especially with a little bit of curry in it. It's amazing. This tastes so good already, just like this. You could eat this just like this without adding anything else to it. But we're going to. I am also going to add some coconut milk to this. I just sprayed myself right in the face. Oh my goodness, that's good. Just a tiny bit of salt and pepper, little pinch of salt. And then we'll just add our potatoes and our peppers when they're done and have the most delicious soup. So, so good. All right, let's scoop up some of this soup. We have some buns in the oven cooking to go with it. This is one of the soups that everybody in our house loves. So good. Yum. Another thing that's really good in this soup, I think I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to put them in, but I didn't, is carrots. Carrots adds a really nice flavor too and a little bit of sweetness. All right, friends, that is it for me today. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.